Hi, my name is Arin. My jaw is clicking like crazy today, and this is Arin Reads. Today we're gonna do quick, a quick reading wrap up for all of the books that I read in March. And this is Luca, my beautiful, beautiful boy. Oh, okay. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Okay. We have a very healthy relationship. Codependency who? Rude that you would even bring that up. We're just really chill, really chill. So. Okay, so I thought that today we could go in order from like least favorite to favorite, because if we did chronological, we would end up on a real bummer note. And that is because last night I finished The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher, and I hated it. I read this because I read The Hollow Places last year, which is also a T. Kingfisher horror, and it was in my honorary mentions. It was a favorite. I loved that book. And I thought I would love this one too.
Let's see an instant replay.
Luca. Hi. This is a folk horror about a woman who goes to clean out her recently deceased grandmother's house out in the sticks in the south. And she takes her coonhound out for a walk one day, and they end up on a mountain that shouldn't exist. Like, they're in flat land. She knows the area well enough to know that there aren't any mountains, certainly not within walking distance of her back door. And there are all of these weird sculptures, and she found this journal from her step-grandfather with all of this weird stuff that's maybe about those sculptures, maybe not. She's really confused. She's trying to figure everything out, right? That's what we're working with here. And that setup, love. Love it. I love it. I love folk horror. I love the sort of cosmic horror that comes with geography that shouldn't be possible, you know? That's really fun. I love T. Kingfisher's standard, very funny, very witty writing. And that is where the list ends of what I loved about this. Loved the foundation, hated the execution and where the story ultimately went. The main problem here, I think, is pacing. I love a slow burn horror when the slow burn is slowly building up tension and slowly building my devotion to the characters so that I really care what happens to them. And this slow burn did neither of those things. This slow burn is just talking about the same things over and over as this woman is clearing out a hoarder's house. It is the logistics of cleaning for a really long time. Tension who? Suspense where? Not here. Not here. And then I'm not going to get into what I hated about where the story ultimately went, like what the answers were, what the climax was like, all of that stuff, because that's really big spoilers. And some people do enjoy this book, so if you're still going to read it, I want you to have the best time possible. All I'm going to say about it is that it was extremely, deeply not for me. Deeply, profoundly not for me. Where the story went is one of the worst places it could have gone for me particularly. I really hated it so much. I would say that this is a character setting horror with a funny narrator and a lot of folk horror spookiness going on. I wouldn't recommend it, but a lot of people would. So, you know, if you love this book, I'm so happy for you. If you end up reading this and love it, I'm so happy for you. But it was not for me at all. Next up, we have a book that I would say I liked fine. It was fine. And that is Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. This is about a family, mom, dad, twins, and a younger brother. The youngest brother is autistic and has Angelman syndrome, so he is non-speaking. And he and the dad go for a walk one day, and only the boy comes back. And so we are left with a missing persons investigation of the dad, and the only person who was there to witness what happened is non-speaking, and so they can't get any answers from him. My thing here is that I think I would have liked it a lot more if it was just a family drama, I found the missing person investigation part of this mostly like distracting and kind of annoying. Like, it was the framing, I think, to get more people into a story that's largely about a non-speaking character, which I can't appreciate. I'm really glad that the story exists. I'm glad that so many people read it, and I think that they read it because missing person investigation drew people in. But for me personally, I would have rathered it be a family drama with a lot more, like, kind of exclusively about the relationships and Eugene's experiences being a non-speaking person and things like that. I wish it was just that, because the framing device of the investigation got old really fast for me, and I just didn't really care about that. I was like, no, just tell me more about Eugene. I just want to know about Eugene, you know? But if an investigation with like the fear and suspense appeals to you, you want the process without being afraid at any point. If a buffer of family drama and character development between you and a missing person investigation makes that fun for you, then I think you would really like this. If it sounds appealing to you, then pick it up. For me, it was kind of just like an okay time. Next up, we have a romance, and that is Georgie All Along by Kate Claiborne. This was enjoyable, but ultimately kind of forgettable for me. I did like both of the main characters. I appreciated their relationship. I liked that a lot. I liked there's a good amount of character development as far as their backstories went. That was great. The pacing was a little bit weird for me, and I just never felt like really captivated by it. I did enjoy it, but it kind of just like, okay, I enjoyed it, now we're done, on to the next. It didn't really stick with me at all. Though I will say that there are discussions of like your job and career don't equate your identity and worth, and I always appreciate those conversations, so I did really like that part. If you love straight contemporary romance, then by all means pick it up. It was a pretty good time. Next up is this really cute middle grade graphic novel called Housecat Troubles, I believe by Mason Dickerson. If you just want an easy, cozy time with a middle grade graphic novel, I highly recommend this one. It's not gonna stick with you. It's not going to like deeply affect you, but it's colorful, it's goofy, it's vibrant. It's all about cats and crows, and what could be better, you know what I mean? And ghosts, what could be better? But it's really cute, it's really goofy, I really enjoyed it. I recommend it. This next one I read because of Allie B. Definitely go check her out if you haven't already. I really loved her video, I really loved what she had to say about this next one, and so I picked it up. And that is Hello Beautiful by Anna Napolitano. So this is a family drama loosely inspired by Little Women about a family with two parents and the four daughters who are extremely close, and one boy from another family who, you know, comes in and affects all of their lives. I'm a huge fan of Little Women, and so I really appreciated all of the little nods. It's very subtle. I really enjoyed it. This is character. I loved the characters, especially Sylvie, who is the second daughter. She's genuinely one of my favorite characters of all time. I loved the discussions of generational trauma that were in here. I don't want to get in too deep about what this is about. I went in kind of blind, and I think that was a good thing. But I think the back says that the main questions it's asking is, can love fix a person? And what can a family withstand? You know, what can a tight-knit, loving family ultimately handle to stay together? And so watching all of these relationships be challenged, how they all dealt with everything that happened. I know this is all really vague, just read the book. It was really beautiful. At one point, about halfway through, I was reading it and I was like, I want my life to be about books. This is why. And like, dadoy, I want my life to be about books. Like, we all been new, but it just like really crystallized while I was reading this book. It was just so impactful. It hurt, but in a beautiful way. I don't even really know how to talk about it, at least without spoiling things. It was just so impactful and beautiful. Really, really packed a punch. I definitely recommend if you are a character reader, if you like family dynamics and generational trauma stories. It was beautiful. Next up, this is hyped for a reason. It's Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. So I'm really new in my romance self-discovery era. I'm also very gay, but still enjoying the straight romances, still having a really good time. I read Part of Your World in January maybe, February. Instantly realized why it was so hyped. Beautiful. And then I picked up the sequel, Yours Truly, and oh my god. I liked it way more. I didn't know that was possible. I liked it so much more. I loved this book. The main characters here are Brianna and Jacob. They both work in an ER together. Jacob has just moved to this hospital. Stuff starts out rocky for them. They don't get along super well. And part of that is that Jacob has really intense social anxiety, and so he doesn't navigate their first interactions great, and that is also furthered by Brianna having some assumptions about him based off of things that she's heard around the hospital. And so eventually he's like, okay, I gotta fix this. And so he sits down and he writes her a letter. And so they start writing letters back and forth. Oof. Jacob, my sweet, sweet baby boy. My sweet, sweet baby boy. I just want to be his best friend, tuck him in my little pocket, and keep him safe. You know? Keep that man safe. Brianna is hilarious. She's the best friend of the main character in the first one. I was really worried that she would get main character syndrome, where she was like boring all of a sudden when she was really funny when the book wasn't about her, but she was still so funny, so likable. Both of them were. The struggles in their relationship, beautiful, very understandable, well captured, really emotional, but that payoff, baby. This is hyped for a reason. It is. It's hyped for a reason. Highly recommend. Okay, we got 2 left, folks. I got a little emotional looking at the cover of this book just now, which I was not expecting. I obviously really loved it a lot. This is Annibot by Sierra Greer. This book made me very, very emotional. If you've been around for a while, you'll know that I love stories about robots. I'm autistic, and every time I read a book about a robot, I relate to them more than I do to the humans. And that is not to say that we're out here furthering stereotypes about autistic people. No, no, no. We're not robots in like the beep boop no emotion sense, right? That's bullshit. But the way that many robots are written, I specifically, because of my autistic traits, really relate to. I'm not saying that all autistic people do. I'm not saying I relate to every robot ever written about, but there's something about the way the authors tend to write robots. The way that they interact with the world around them, the way that they try to understand the humans around them but have a disconnect, the way that they think problems through, all of these things I specifically just really, really relate to through an autistic lens. I talked about in, I think it was my first vlog. I think it was my first vlog ever when I read the Monk and Robot duology. My boy Mosscap. That, you know, this is kind of a double-edged sword for me because I love reading about characters that I relate to, but also those books are always about, not always, but usually about what makes a human. And so, you know, I'm reading about someone who is not technically a human, relating to them more than I do to the humans, and then the discussion is, what does this robot lack that makes them not a human? You know what I mean? I have a very complicated relationship with robot stories, and I'm addicted to them. I love that contradiction, complexity there. I love relating so deeply to them. I love all of it. So I certainly loved it here, but that is not all. That's not all. This was done so well. So this specific robot, Annibot, in this book, she is essentially a sex robot for this man named Doug. He can, on a whim, change anything about her appearance. He can give her any command that he wants. He's completely in control of her. But he likes to play it like they're in an equal partnership romantic relationship. And so this is a lot about power struggles and dynamics in unhealthy romantic relationships. And the discussion is so successful in here because the author remained at least a little sympathetic to Doug. Don't get me wrong, Doug can eat my poop. But this was so successful because the author still made us understand where Doug was coming from, why he was doing the things that he was doing. I was still like, haha, diddly you, Doug. But he wasn't a full-on villain. You know what I mean? We understood that he had his own pain. You know what I mean? If it was just like, Doug doesn't give a shit about Annie and he's abusive and Annie needs to run away and Doug has no good traits whatsoever and he's just a piece of diddly, then like it would be a little bit flat. But the author, Sierra Greer, did a wonderful job of the complexities, the little nuances that made Doug extremely human and Annie extremely human. And the way everything plays out between them is just so well written. But the best part about this book, the part that I think makes me the most emotional, is that we get to watch Annie grow throughout the book. Through the prose, through the complexity of her thinking, through her actions, through her emotions. All of these things become more and more nuanced throughout the book. When you start, it's a little bit clunky. It's a little bit distant. And then as it goes on, as Annie grows and becomes more and more human, the book does as well. And it is just such a beautiful, beautiful journey to go on. I cannot recommend this book enough. This maybe should have been my number one of the month now that I'm talking about it and I still have one left to go. But regardless, loved this book. If you're a character development person, literary with like a little bit of sci-fi, I mean obviously a fair amount of sci-fi, but with the way that it's written, it feels like our world just with robots in it, so it's kind of like a really grounded and relatable and kind of mundane sci-fi, which is always my favorite. Highly recommend. And lastly, we have Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano. Got me back in my spooky times. Later to be ruined by the twisted ones, but got me back in my spooky times. So this book fits into like my favorite, probably my number one favorite subgenre, which is nostalgia horror. Especially like 70s, 80s, 90s. You know? Amazing. My favorite. This book delivered on that. So this actually takes place now, but it largely takes place on an island where everyone lives, acts, dresses, everything like it's 1994. Our narrator is the brother of a woman who has gone missing on Clifford Island. And he is collecting interviews, articles, he's writing out like dramatizations of what happened based on information he's gathered, and he's collecting all of these things into this book. And his sister, Willow, she has recently lost her son. And she finds the name Clifford Island written on the ground in his bedroom. And so she decides she has to go to Clifford Island to see how it's connected to her son. Obviously, that's the island where everyone is living like it's 1994. And we just slowly unravel why they're living this way and how it's connected to Willow's son, What Happened to Willow. I couldn't put this book down. It was just so dynamic and engaging. The format changes worked really well for me. The characters, I wouldn't say this is character driven, but the characters were still well developed and I really deeply cared about them. I would say that this is more setting and plot focused, which is not always my thing, but worked really well here because it was still so grounded by these characters that I really enjoyed. And the 90s of it all. I really, really loved it. I really loved it. I honestly feel like I got 2 new favorites. I'm so happy for me. Okay, those are all of the books that I read in March. If you've made it this far, I would love if you left me a robot emoji. I hope that I was really clear about the whole robot discussion. We're not stereotyping here. This is just me, one single autistic person, talking about their specific experiences. If you haven't already, I would love if you liked and subscribed. Have you read any of these books? Have I convinced you to read any of them? Please let me know. What did you read in March? And I will see you next time. Bye!